Welcome to our timeline assignment. All right, so a little bit about timelines. All right, so timelines are chronological lists of events that help historians figure out things like cause and effect, along with things like changes or continuity across time. And you'll often see timelines drawn like this first picture right here, where it's just a line and it's got some things marked off it to show time with dates, right? Sometimes you'll see them as a list. It's another really common way to do them, like that, right? Like that second picture. And the trick with those kind of timelines, which are the two most common kind of timelines, is that they lend themselves to thinking about history as a clear-cut series of events where one thing leads to another, right? As if it were inevitable. And sometimes you're absolutely going to look at that and say, oh yeah, that's the logical outcome, right? That was always going to happen. But most often with history, that's not the case, right? So it's not the only way to think about history. Another way to think about history is like a wheel, where we're seeing similar kinds of events, but the changes and the causes might be different, right? So maybe it's a wheel that's spinning on a car driving along the road. Okay, so timelines that portray that piece look a lot like this picture down here. We've got that wheel going on, right? And so timelines are important in history because they help us see chronology, but they're not definitive, meaning that different people will include different events. So what events a historian places on a timeline will depend on that particular historian's judgment, right? Which means that two historians creating timelines about the same time period will often include different events. They might include some of the same events, but they'll most often include different events as well, right? And that's because each one is going to decide that different things are important, and that's okay. It's okay. The thing we often don't teach you about history is that it's a lot of judgment about what does and doesn't matter. So we're going to practice with timelines and chronology, and we're going to do that by making our very own timelines. Ours are going to be the spiral variety, like this one right here, okay, which means that we're going to start at the center with the earliest events and then work our way outwards from there. And so as you're going out and around your spiral, the events are moving forward in time. So if it's the closer it is to today, the closer it should be to the edge of your timeline. Okay. The focus of our timeline is going to be on the history of Washington State, specifically on indigenous history. And indigenous, remember, those are the folks who were native to the area, so Native American history. So we're going to read this traditional timeline. Open that up for you really quick. And you're going to pick somewhere between 9 and 12 events from this timeline. There's a lot more than that, but that's okay. And it doesn't matter which 9 or 12 you decide are most important in terms of looking at indigenous history. Okay? Use your judgment. I'm going to literally go through and count events. That's what I'm going to do. And so you're going to give me the event, and you're going to give me just a little bit, like one sentence maybe, about that event on your timelines. Okay? So that's our traditional timeline that we're going to pull our events from. What we're going to do with it is we're going to put it on a circular timeline. And that one is going to look like 3, 2, 1. Booyah. All right. It's going to look like this. Okay. Here's our circular timeline. You're going to need to use text boxes, by the way, to edit this. just so you know, because the actual timeline piece is a picture. And then you're going to answer a couple of questions. Okay, you're going to answer a couple of questions. It'll just kind of get you thinking, which is really the purpose, to explore timelines, to explore chronology, to introduce a little bit about Indigenous history. That handout, that circular timeline handout, that's what you're going to upload to this assignment to get credit. All right, if you have questions, if you need any help with anything, please reach out and let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in class.